Test tube baby is going to be defined. Chemical pregnancy is going to be defined. So you do not have to worry about asking what those mean. Okay. Now, I am going to be briefly looking at up to today's history of technical help with human reproduction. So, it was in the long ago days of 1978 when in vitro fertilization was used to help a woman with blocked fallopian tubes become pregnant. Now, everybody understand that in a normal attempt to get pregnant, where the woman has intercourse with a man and hopes it works, conception will take place in the fallopian tubes. Just a moment here. There we go. This picture on the right is a picture of the ovaries. Those are those little things like looking like a bunch of grapes here. The ovaries, the fallopian tubes, and the fallopian tubes will feed into the uterus. And down here we have the cervix, which is the opening to the uterus, and down here is the vagina where intercourse is taking place. So, when ejaculation has taken place, depositing tons and tons of sperm into the vagina, those tons and tons of sperm will attempt to swim using their little tails for propulsion, attempt to swim through the cervix, up into the uterus, and into the fallopian tubes, where hopefully there is an egg waiting for them. If the sperm makes it to the egg, we have a situation where one of those sperm is going to actually get inside the egg, fertilize the egg, and produce a zygote in the fallopian tubes. And here we have just a little update in case people didn't know. On the left, we have how lots of people think conception takes place. And that is one sperm makes it to the egg, pierces the egg, and fertilization takes place. That isn't really so, because what is needed to allow a sperm inside the egg, and you see this on the right here, this little guy down at the bottom, where he has actually made it into the egg. Everybody can see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. it is actually necessary for conception to happen for there to be a whole bunch of sperm trying to get into the egg. I don't know why, but that's how it works. And so it takes a whole bunch of sperm clustered about the egg, desperately trying to get in before the wall of the egg can be pierced by the most energetic sperm. And it says up here, it takes more than one to gain entrance for one. This is why sperm count matters. In other words, if the potential father has a low sperm count, it's very often true that there are not enough of them who make it to the egg to allow for fertilization. And so one of the ways that that the medical people can facilitate reproduction for a man who has a low sperm count is to actually artificially inseminate the woman with her husband's sperm. And what the husband does is show up in the lab and make an ejaculation, which he hands over in a little jar to the people on the other side of a small door. And so if the potential father does this a number of times and, say 10 ejaculations worth of his sperm are collected and then by the medical people, that is injected into the woman's vagina, this will very often overcome this problem of low sperm count and allow the man to be a father. So, yeah, sometimes works. If the man is just basically completely non-fertile, this is the point at which you would use donor sperm to impregnate the mother. And there are lots of companies out there eager to help you facilitate, get over your problems with reproduction. And yeah, they will do one of two things. Either use donor sperm, which has been purchased, or use the concentrated sperm from the husband. Let's see. Now, I'm just about to answer your question, Dean. But let's go back to where we were. Okay, yes. So one slide taken care of, and David has a question. And then Dean.
Point of clarification. How do you preserve sperm?
How do you preserve sperm? Okay, The most common methodology is freezing it.
And does that work all the time?
No, certainly it does not work all the time. In fact, fairly recent research has tended to indicate that some men's sperm are much more amenable to being frozen and then thawed and actually producing a baby than other men. And we have no idea why that happens. But it's beginning to look like, and they have to do more research, that again, there are some men whose sperm is much more amenable to the freezing thawing process and still working thereafter.
So is it fair to say it's complicated
Oh,
and
God, yes.
there's some chemical complexities that we still don't understand?
Overwhelmingly. And boy, all through this, there are complexities we don't understand yet. But a lot of research is ongoing, and we're hoping. Dean, we can't hear you. Cannot hear Dean.
Dean, you're muted.
I understand. I couldn't get the pop-up bar to pop up because I'm full screen. I should have just hit escape. Yeah, it's weird. I just happened to be I saw some video and they colorized it or whatever, and it was this whole business about all these sperm banging on the door, and then that makes the wall does something. Anyway, they showed the color, and when the first guy gets in, it just goes boom, and it flashes purple, and everybody else is locked out. Yeah, I just happened to catch that on TV. And then a real quick thing, I was watching a thing on trees and California redwood. DNA is 10 times as big as a human, and it took months to decode one single tree. And 90% of their DNA is junk because they clone themselves. The mother tree clones through the root system. And what the guy said, he said, well, it's like I get 4 people to spit in a test tube. I send it off to 23andMe, and they go, all right, you figure out all three individuals. Yeah, it's quite complex. Interesting. Anyway.
Okay. Tom, I have been going on just calling on the people whose pictures I can see, but I can't see everybody. Could I ask Tom to call on people to ask questions?
Was that me or H Tom?
Oh, Tom Walsh.
Okay.
Dean, are you back again?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Is there anybody else wanting to talk about this slide? Great. Let us go on. Okay. Now,
I do have a question now that you mention it.
okay.
One of the pictures showed the sperm being injected not in the uterus, but farther upstream.
Like in the fallopian tubes?
Fallopian tubes, or even where the eggs are produced. And so how is it actually done? Are there different techniques?
Yes. Oh, let me think. The standard technique is just to get the sperm into the vagina and say, go boys, try for it.
Okay.
There is a sort of pinpoint method where they have a little needle where they hope to capture like one sperm and then go through the vaginal wall and find the egg in the fallopian tube and actually use this needle to poke through the wall. Unfortunately, this method is much less successful. The number of times where it works is very infrequent. They actually try to get one sperm stuck inside that egg. You can try it as a last ditch method if the other method is not working, but it is not the method of first choice.
I would guess it would not necessarily select the best sperm. We're doing it that way. The best swimmer or whatever.
That's what?
It would not select the best sperm, such as the best swimmer, the fastest or strongest.
Yeah. Okay, anybody else? Questions? Okay. Now, research into what they call chemical pregnancy is about 20 years old. I mean, they've been doing it for a while, but it's, strictly speaking, recent research. And a chemical pregnancy is defined as the conceptus from the time of fertilization in the fallopian tube to the time it has traveled into the uterus, become implanted in the uterine lining, and begin growing the placenta. So this is the earliest this is the very earliest stage of pregnancy. From one fertilized egg in the fallopian tube to that egg makes a successful traverse down into the uterus and successfully implants in the uterine wall and starts growing, starts becoming a baby. So when we say that we are researching a chemical pregnancy, that's the stage at which we are researching. From conception to implantation. That's a chemical pregnancy. This research was started to study the very early pregnancy in order to create more and more reliable early home pregnancy tests. Because the normal method for detecting a pregnancy, the hormones that the egg is causing to be put out into the woman's body to prepare it for implantation are so weak at this time that it's very hard to detect the pregnancy in this stage. And so that's why this research started. But we got some really, really interesting answers out of this research. Again, the results were, at least to me, quite astonishing, be it in vivo or in vitro. In vivo means inside the body. In vitro means out there in a petri dish where you're doing trying to make a test tube baby. And what they discovered in researching this very early stage of pregnancy was that many of the fertilized eggs would not implant in the uterus. It just didn't work. It would get down the fallopian tube into the uterus and try to implant, and it doesn't work. It's just, the fertilized egg is washed out with the next menses. And some very, very careful research indicated that the fertilized eggs being aborted were often defective eggs. There was something wrong with them. The egg was a mutation, or, there was something wrong with the sperm. And again, a very, very careful research first of all identified the non-implanters and the fact that those tended to be fertilized eggs that there was something wrong with. And the notion that there's something wrong with the conceptus, the fertilized egg, the probability of that goes up with the woman's age. She has just got more eggs that won't lead to implantation. And by the time the woman who's trying to get pregnant is 35, and again, this is a statistical thing, but over half of her eggs are non-implanters. And her body just takes them out, aborts them. This is self-abortion, like self-deportation. So, questions on this?
Bren has a question.
Yeah. I pulled down a paper from January. I didn't see the earlier. Did you have a paper with this data? Because I've been starting to look at it. And is there data?
No, I do not have.
Okay, I just found one, so I'll send it to you, and I've got my relational AI processing it relative to stuff, and I'll send you the output. It's been fascinating as you've been talking. There's some critical insights that basically come up, and yeah, I'll send it to you. I'll put it in
Okay.
the tree. I may just get it to hide some of the mathematics here because I still haven't worked through how we're going to do that. But let me see.
Thank
Okay, thanks. Sorry about that. I just I'm a data guy, so I always look for the papers. But it's been fascinating. I'm loving your talk. So please continue.
Okay, Tom?
Yeah, I would suspect, but don't know for sure, and don't know if you have the information, that um, aged sperm producers, the men, produce sperm that's not as vigorous and don't as easily fertilize the eggs. Whereas in the women, it's the older eggs. If the women are older, maybe the older eggs are not viable for some reason, and even if they get fertilized, then they get rejected. I don't know what the chemical process is for deciding which ones to reject, but I would guess the age of both partners has a factor, but the factor works in two different ways.
Yes. And certainly we have indicators that, well, for instance, in one particular problem with the conception that this mechanism does not catch is the, oh God, what is it officially called? Trisomy 21? What used to be called mongoloidism in the child. For some reason, that makes it through this process. And, we have quite a few children born that way. And, how can I say this? Definitely a serious age factor with the mother. And they have found that there is a lesser, but still there, age factor with the father. So this self-abort mechanism does not catch everything, but it gets a lot. And if you want a horror story related to this mechanism, anybody remember the thalidomide disaster?
Yes.
Where the mother took this thalidomide drug and the babies were born limbless, usually. I mean, it was really horrible. And all the research that had been done on this drug before it was okayed in humans indicated that there was simply no way thalidomide could be a mutagen. I mean, it did not produce mutations in rats. It didn't produce mutations in guinea pig. It just wouldn't create mutations. And what they finally, with a hell of a lot of research, determined was that this drug was taken for morning sickness. And morning sickness can be a real disaster in some women. They can't keep anything down. And it turns out that the way thalidomide facilitated the birth of all these terribly deformed babies was that it short-circuited the body's check on implantation. You know, if the woman had not taken thalidomide, these eggs would have been self-aborted because there was really something wrong with them. And yeah, that's how it worked. Tom, you want to just call on
Sure.
people?
Go ahead, Dean, you're first.
Yeah, I think I'm unmuted. Yeah, just refresh my brain. See, when in high school, this is where they put the girls in one room and the guys in another room. Yeah, I didn't get to see this until I was older. Am I correct in saying that a female is given a certain number of eggs, and that's a lifetime supply, and yet
Yes.
men are making sperm until they're 100, you know, whether they're any good or not, you know. But am I right about that? You get a certain
Yes.
number of eggs. So those eggs get older. And I have friends that had children when they were older, and does not the risk of the quality of the eggs seems to go down after 30, 35, 40. Am I correct
Yes.
in that? Yeah.
And this correlates with the notion that by the time a woman is in her mid-30s, her body is self-aborting like
Right.
53% of
Right.
each conception.
I have a dear friend that I used to work with who had a Down's baby, right? But lived quite a while, but and now she blamed it on the drugs, you know, on the LSD and the whatever. She had all this guilt, you know, and I just say, well, we don't know, Debbie, you know, because and she's now a, what do you call it? Where you birth babies? They used to call it like midwife, but she does that now in retirement. But yeah, so there is biologically your success is as a female is better if you start cranking out kids right after your quinceañera, you know, when you're 15, 16, right in your prime.
That is true.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, David.
It seems to me that I've heard that women can't have babies after menopause, but that men can have children even into their 70s and 80s.
Yes, that is true.
Okay, I guess, is that it, David? All right. The mechanism of thalidomide, what you are saying, I think, you're talking about a fetus being aborted after it started developing. Because a woman's not going to take thalidomide until she's become pregnant and starts getting morning sickness.
Yes.
So it's not pre-implantation. It's post-implantation where the effect comes in. So I always had the impression that the thalidomide was doing something chemically to the developing fetus. But you're saying it only prevents the natural abortion of a
Yes.
fetus that developed incorrectly. I know someone who was a thalidomide baby. The only problem is one of the hands didn't develop. So this person does just fine coping with that. But okay, so there's it affects the ability of the woman to abort a defective developing fetus.
Yes.
Okay. But it doesn't affect the fetus itself. That's where I had
Yes.
a misunderstanding.
You were correct there. Okay, anybody else?
You know, sometimes the universe talks. I'm going to post something into the window that's emerged from the paper I pulled down. There's a whole lot behind it. I'll post the other stuff up in the email. I'm not on the Zoom. See if this makes sense to you. And we can get to it at the end rather than destroy your presentation now. I'll just post it now, and then we can reflect on it at the end. Would that be
Okay, so
okay,
you're
Carole?
going to put it in chat?
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat, but you keep going, and we'll revisit
Okay.
it at the end of your presentation. I don't want to derail it now. Does that make sense?
Great. I appreciate that. Okay. All right. Meanwhile, alongside these aids to fertility, we were also having a revolution in contraception and abortion methods. Okay, in the left-hand column, we are looking at the development of the legalized abortion for a woman who has a pregnancy and does not want to keep it and have it continue and become a baby. In 1971, the state of New York legalized abortion with no residency requirement. Now, up until this time, there'd been a couple of states, you know, the square ones out west, Colorado or Wyoming or, you know, this kind of thing, that actually allowed legalized abortion, but they had a 90-day residency requirement. So they were taking care of the state's women who wanted abortions, but they wouldn't have people coming in to get them from out of state because of that pesky residency requirement. So this was a really, really big deal when New York legalized abortion with no residency requirements. Because basically any woman who could afford a round-trip plane ticket to New York, and also the fee for abortions was running about $150 at that time. You know, her problem is solved. And the organization Planned Parenthood went into high gear to allow poor women to make it to New York and get an abortion. And so, I mean, things were not great. You would much rather get this done by your own doctor in your own hometown, but this really helped. And I will mention that I had my abortion under this particular rubric. I flew to New York, had the abortion, flew home. So just a year later, we had a little over a year of New York helping out women who wanted abortions. And in 1972, right at the end of 72, like, I don't know, November, December, we got from the Supreme Court Roe versus Wade. And all of a sudden, you could have your abortion in your hometown with your regular doctor. Wonderful. And right around 1980, okay, let me back up a little bit. Up until this time, abortion was an operation that the doctor did what was called a D&C, dilation and curettage. And it means that he stuck this sharp scraping device through the cervix and used it to very carefully scrape off the uterine lining. And at this point, you had a fetus that was embedded in the uterine lining, and that's how you achieved abortion. Dangerous. The doctor had to be good at what he was doing, or you'd end up with a perforated uterus and bleed to death. But right around the 1980 mark, a new method of abortion came out, and it was called vacuum suction abortion. And instead of using a sharp scraper and trying to get the whole uterine lining with its embedded fetus, zygote, whatever, you all of a sudden had a method that was enormously safer, could be done by, you didn't need a doctor. It could be done by anybody who could use sterile technique. And just a moment. Right. Yeah. Sorry, my phone is. Okay. And frankly, this method was being used very, very heavily by people who were doing illegal abortions. It could be done by anyone of reasonable intelligence who believed in sterile technique, and it couldn't perforate the uterus. And all of a sudden, getting an illegal abortion became safer than getting a legal D&C. And yeah. And, you know, I have seen these mechanisms, you know, it's a couple of great big jars filled with water, create a certain amount of suction. But, you know, you can never get it to you can never get the suction to the point where it would, you know, perforate the uterus. Okay. 1990, about, came out a drug, RU-486. And that was some European drug company, Russell Ucliffe, I believe, which is where the RU comes from. And that became the abortion pill. And the drug, I can never remember, it's Miss something. But yeah. And again, here, abortion all of a sudden became much safer. It was, you had less chance of dying from a pill abortion than you did letting the pregnancy run its course and going through childbirth. Okay. Again, approximately 1995, we get the morning after pill. And this replaced, okay, in some cases, this meant that you no longer had to have an abortion if there was an accident, if the condom broke, or you were on a first date and he was really great and you didn't use birth control, or, you know, you were raped, you know, anytime for whatever reason the woman was not using birth control and had intercourse anyway. Let's see. Now, several problems with the morning after pill. First of all, it had to be taken within, I believe it was 72 hours of the accident, whatever it was. And you had to get it from a doctor with a prescription. And yeah, not as much use as it could have been. And something that happened, at least for me, just this year, is I walked into Walgreens a couple of months ago, and they had, what is it called? Plan B. Plan B is the brand name morning after pill. And then there is a generic morning after pill. And they were just sitting out on the floor among all the other over-the-counter drugs. And if you got the generic and used GoodRx, you could have it for $12. And I was just bloody amazed that, yeah, there it is. No more having to see the doctor, having to get in to see the doctor within 72 hours. Just, pick it up OTC, it's cheap, and you've got the morning after pill. There are complications with using it, and I don't want to go into it in too much detail because it's really complicated. But the drug in the morning after pill it does not prevent the fertilized egg from implanting. What it does is it postpones ovulation. And, if you were about to ovulate and the accident happens, if you don't do anything, you are likely to get pregnant if the sorry, I keep fishing for words. But basically, it only works in the first half of the woman's cycle, and it works by postponing postponing ovulation, postponing the release of the egg past the 72 hours that the sperm has to make it to the egg, and no egg. And I mean, the methodology is really, really, really complex, but I am unhappy with it in that they don't tell the woman that this isn't going to do any good. If you've already ovulated. Yeah, so a little bit of a problem with that.
We have a couple hands up. Are you ready?
Okay.
Go ahead, Dean.
Okay, there I am. I'm multitasking. When you were talking about the DNC, the scraping, you didn't mention the thousands of usually young girls who did the same thing with a coat hanger. Some of them successfully, many of them died and hemorrhaged. Because not everyone can get on a plane and fly to New York, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's coat hanger abortions have been going on for decades, I believe. I hope they're not now, but they certainly were.
They were going on back when Hippocrates created his oath.
I meant to say it's going on for centuries. Thank
Yes.
Okay. Next hand.
I guess what I was, maybe you're gonna get to this, Carol, but instead of having the after sex, day after
Morning
sex
after pill.
pill, it seems to me that some form of reasonably priced birth control would be, as a preventative measure would be more rational. But is that just not coming until the 70s? What's the date on this after?
Well, the morning after pill is supposed to be when, for whatever reason, she wasn't using birth control.
Well, I
Now,
think the reason why
Sure.
most people don't use birth control is because
say again.
the reason why most females don't use birth control is because they can't afford it, or they're raised in a specific family environment where that's frowned upon.
Well, or as I say, cases of rape, she wasn't anticipating getting raped, so she wasn't using birth control.
Right.
Um,
That's obvious.
and times when they were using birth control and the condom broke. That happens.
Well, I don't think of condoms as being birth control. I'm thinking about the pill. I mean, I used to hear the joke, people would say, what do you call someone who uses foam and rubbers for birth control? The answer is parents. And
Yes.
so I guess that, and I think I can say from my own personal experience, the pill was the only really effective form of birth control that I was aware of. But it was more expensive. You had to pretty much have a wealthy family, someone who had money to be able.
Or be under a health plan that paid for birth control pills.
Right.
That was very, very common.
What about IUDs?
Okay, what about IUDs?
Well, are you going to talk about them?
Yes.
Okay.
If you look over on the right-hand side, about midterm IUDs, I am going to talk about them.
All right.
I was going to also mention that there are other forms of birth control. IUDs is one of them. Diaphragms is another that was very common. I don't know if they
Yes.
use it anymore.
As a matter of fact, I was using a diaphragm when I got pregnant and had to fly to New York.
Yeah, so it depends on how well it fits and all that kind of stuff, I guess. There are lots of times when people get pregnant when they didn't intend to, didn't want to, in case of rape or whatever. So that's why there is a need for a morning after pill.
Well, I mean, basically, for some women, it has the advantage that it's not abortion. The mechanism by which it works is to postpone ovulation. And so if the woman herself is opposed to abortion, or, you know, this is something that can be used that isn't abortion. Okay, now down the right-hand side here, we are talking about, you know, things getting better and better in the way of contraception. And back in the 60s, basically the most effective birth control around was the diaphragm used with a spermicide. And what the diaphragm basically did was hold the spermicide up close to the cervix, so that in order to get up there and fertilize the egg, the sperm would have to swim under the diaphragm and make it through the spermicide and get all the way up there and cause a pregnancy. And so, you know, it didn't work all the time. It definitely had a failure rate higher than the pill. So in the 1970s, we get the birth control pill. And for many women, this was fantastic. Because, first of all, you didn't have to do anything at the time of the sex act. You didn't have to remember to insert the diaphragm. You didn't have to use a condom. You didn't have to do anything that would get in the way of spontaneous sex. And plus, it was an enormously reliable form of birth control, much less likely to fail than the whole diaphragm and spermicide or the condom or pretty much anything else. Again, sometime in the 1990s, they came up with IUDs. Somebody, I think Stan, asked about IUDs. And these were not as effective as the birth control pills. And they had the disadvantage that this definitely was an abortion. In other words, what the IUD did is to keep all fertilized eggs from implantation. You know, while the woman's body is getting rid of just the fertilized eggs that won't implant, the IUD is preventing implantation of any conceptus. Again, somewhere in the 90s, oh, sorry. The really fantastic thing about IUDs, and some women went to them for this reason, was, again, you didn't have to do anything that held up the Sex Act. You know, the birth control was just always there. And believe me, this was significant. You could not have the doctor or your partner or anybody else saying, oh, this is all your fault. You forgot to take a pill, or you didn't use the diaphragm one time. Yeah. And again, somewhere in the 90s were big on birth control. They came up with implants and a particular type of implant that is slow releasing progesterone is buried in your flesh using a very large needle. And it's good for, I don't know, 5 years or something, that it will prevent pregnancy.
How?
How?
Yeah, how?
The progesterone, or in some cases progestin, that is released by the implant that is the hormone that tells the female body it's time to menstruate. You know, a woman's cycle is basically hormonally a dance between estrogen and progesterone. And the estrogen is busy trying to get your body ready for pregnancy. And progesterone is saying, okay, we didn't catch this time. Time to flush out the uterine lining, have your period. And so that's how the implant helps you not get pregnant. And then lastly, but not leastly, an awful lot of people started adding condoms to their sex life because they were some help against contracting HIV or, you know, other unpleasant and or deadly viruses. So, you know, while the condom is helping with safe sex, it is also adding a bit to your making your I'm fishing for words today. Senility is obviously setting in, but it just upped the reliability of your birth control a bit while you were protecting yourself from, you know, while you were practicing safe sex I had also added a bit to the birth control. Okay. Anybody got questions here where I can,
Nope.
shall I go on?
Yes.
Okay. Ha! Okay. That last was, the last of what we have done in the past, both to prevent a pregnancy coming to term or to facilitate pregnancy. And from here on, I am looking at what I see as technical things that are going to happen in the future to, again, either facilitate fertility or allow one to skip finishing a pregnancy. It's all under reproductive medicine. So this futuristic gal here is trying to look at the future. And the things I see that are in the line, that are being researched and may come to pass in future decades. And the first one I'm talking about is host mother surrogacy. Now, right now, okay, just a second. Okay. Okay. Right now, we are doing some host mother surrogacy. And this is where the genetic parents pay a host mother to grow their genetic child in her body, go through the childbirth, and hand the kid over to them. And this is being done today, but it's only being done for women who cannot carry a pregnancy to term. And I will show you some stuff on how this is done. But today, the only being a host mother that is approved is to help a woman or a couple become parents when she can't carry the baby and birth it herself. Any number of reasons there. Now, what I am foreseeing as a revolution in the future is that I think paid surrogacy will be used for other reasons than just, the woman can't carry a baby to term. This would be women who simply do not want to carry and birth their own child. And, you can see women who are in particular professions, athletes, models, people for whom, they want to have a baby. They want to have a baby that is genetically theirs and their husband's, but they do not want to experience the pregnancy. And what I am foreseeing is this becoming common for women who just want to get out of the pregnancy, not for women who can't finish the pregnancy. And I foresee it as a highly paid profession, occupation, for a young woman who's working her way through college. Have 2 or 3 babies for other people, and don't graduate with that load of student debt. So what I'm foreseeing here is a cultural change. We can already do this, but I am foreseeing a cultural change that will cause it to be done a lot more.
I have a question.
Yeah, let me just finish this quickly. The sci-fi reference I have is some of you must have read Robert Heinlein's The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, where they have a revolution on the moon. And one of the 3 conspirators who get together and start the revolution is a young woman who her profession is host mother. And, she has already birthed 3 or 4 babies for other people. And she says, it doesn't really get in the way of my being a political agitator and working on the revolution. It doesn't even slow me down, except for the last couple of months. So an ideal profession for social activists and revolutionaries. I kind of like that. Okay. Now, I will entertain questions now, and then I am going to show you a couple of advertising from a couple of agencies that are looking for host mothers, surrogates.
Okay, go
Okay,
ahead, Chris.
Tom?
Chris, go ahead.
Does anyone see any moral complications from this? The birth mother might be emotionally attached after giving birth. There are cases of that, and want to change her mind, not expecting this to be the case.
But
Okay, well, let me finish. And also, I don't think the only people, I'm guessing, the only women that would be willing to do this are women who don't have enough money. So you would get poor women who are doing this only for the money. There'd be no other reason to do this. Being wombs for rich women. And also, is a rich woman really going to have the same connection to the child just handed to her as she would have giving birth to it? I see there are more issues involved in this than just technical, the technical ability to do it. That's all.
well, let's see.
We have another hand up.
I know of a couple of cases where couples have adopted newborns and they make a deal with a woman who is going to give up the baby.
Mhm.
You know, she's become pregnant. She doesn't want to have an abortion, but as soon as that kid pops out, it's going to be up for adoption.
Right.
And what is often done is that the people who are looking to become adoptive parents pay all of her medical care, her, you know, the hospital costs of giving birth to the baby, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And she just hands the baby over at the time, at the time it's born. And I certainly know that in these cases, people who've done it, there is a very strong attachment to the baby the moment they get it. I mean, it's much more of an attachment than adopting an older child.
Okay.
So I don't necessarily see a problem with the parents not being bonded with the child because it's just handed to them rather than her going through the birth process. Does that help any?
Yes.
Oh, and as for the woman backing out, this does happen in cases where where the child is genetically hers. In other words, the genetic mother cannot carry a child, but her husband's sperm is used to impregnate this woman, and she's supposed to give them the kid at birth. And yes, there are cases where the woman backs out there and says, no, I'm going to keep my baby. But in the case of host mothers, the host mother has no genetic relationship to the baby. It is not hers in the sense that the artificially inseminated.
A good point.
And I don't know, we can go, I was going to show you some amazing advertising from a hosting company that let's see.
We have 2 more hands up.
Well, okay, I'll try to show this after I answer their questions.
Okay, Dean, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm glad someone brought up the morality thing, because that's been bouncing around my brain. I also know that it'll keep lawyers happy because women back out, da 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 da. The other problem is, and I have heard where some women invite the host mother to live in their spare bedroom, like a nanny, and so that the mother can keep an eye on, is this person doing drugs? Are they eating the right, being the mother that mother would have been. But adoption, you can adopt infants
Yes, I explained the
shortly after birth, right? Yeah, so you can get that. I just don't see the need for this, but I'm not a woman, and I understand that the drive to have a child is really, really, really built into women. And then for whatever reason they can't and all that. But I have a good friend, her sister who whatever, I don't know why, but chose to adopt two kids. At birth, they have both met their birth mothers, et cetera, and it's all good, and they're nothing but loved, and they have another person that they've connected with. So yeah, it can work out. Adoption.
See, in this case, genetically speaking, the child is the child of this woman and of her husband.
I understand.
And for many, many, many people, that satisfies the urge to reproduce. Hey, it's our kid. It's going to look like us. Yep.
No, I get all that. And of course, if you're talking about same-sex couples who are going to be and are using this, well, you got 2 eggs or you got 2 sperm. You don't have a mix of both, so you got to fake it.
And I get into that in a further slide.
Okay, 1 more hand, Eric. Okay.
I put my question in the chat. Just asked, what's the feasibility of artificial wombs in the future? I don't know if you're monitoring chat, but
And that is one of the next slides
Okay.
is going to be on, as I
Okay,
say, the
so-
holy grail of reproductive medicine is the artificial womb. And so that's coming.
Okay, we have half an hour left, or less than that.
Okay, do we have any more questions here?
Oh,
All right. I think what I'm going to do is finish the whole presentation. And then if we have time at the end, I will show you this truly amazing advertisement for host mothers.
Why don't you just show it now? Are you teasing us?
well,
No,
let's get
no.
to it.
It's
It is
just that
amazing.
it's going to take some time, and I want to make sure that I get through all of the rest of the presentation. Now, just a moment here. Come on, Charlie. Bah, humbug. Okay. So, under my what's in the future, I am looking at widespread use of host mothers. And the next bit is babies for same-sex couples. Yes, we are right on the cusp. I would say we will be able to do this in the next 10 years of being able to combine two ova into a fertilized egg that the child will end up having two mothers and no father from a genetic standpoint. Yeah, that's these guys. Okay, can you see me? That's these guys over here. These two happy women, one of whom is clutching a baby. And only a little more difficult would be for two men to combine the sperm from each of them into a baby. Now, if it's two men, they're going to have to get a host mother involved. They're going to have to hire somebody to gestate this baby for them. And the two men are probably going to have to buy an egg. There are women out there who are selling eggs. And in order to do it for two men, they are probably going to use the cloning process where you combine the two male gametes and then insert that into an egg that has had the same technique they use for cloning, where you have an egg and you take out all of the innards of this egg, human egg, leaving only the somehow ability, now that you've replaced its nucleus, to grow into a fetus. So if we want to do it for 2 men, you're going to have to involve the purchase of an egg that will then be gutted, essentially, and their combined zygotes inserted into the egg and grown and birthed by a host mother. In the case of 2 women, it would be quite possible for one of them to act as host mother. And of course, if we manage to get the artificial womb, the uterine replicator, then neither of these guys would have to worry about host mothers. You know. Okay, questions? Tom,
Dean.
can you
Well, Dean just put his hand up.
I keep thinking, what could possibly go wrong here? When you start taking an egg and somehow, and my question is, what about male, female? Are 2 men going to be able to choose a female baby? Or is it, and could 2 women with no sperm involved, could they create a Y chromosome?
It would be a genetically more complicated process. In other words, this combining the innards of 2 sperm to create a boy child and taking 2 ova and merging them to create a girl child, we are really, really close to being able to do that. But if you want to allow the 2 men to have a girl child or the 2 women to have a boy child, it's just an order of magnitude more complex, genetically speaking. Probably won't happen in the next 10 years, maybe in the next 30. Tom, Tom?
Yeah, the great science fiction reference. But yeah, she goes off in that science fiction universe into some very bizarre combinations that
Doesn't she, though?
Oh yes. 2 guys can have a baby. Okay, that's a stretch. Okay. I can have a baby with myself. I forget the name of the character who does this. But it's
Isn't that Heinlein? And
no.
No, we're
That's
talking about Louis McMaster Bujold.
yeah, but
Bujold's series.
genetically,
Highlands. I don't ever remember him going in that direction.
who's his longest lived ancestor?
Oh, well, that's making he's making a clone of himself,
Yeah, exactly.
or rather, he was trying to avoid having this done, but they caught him, and
Yeah, right.
but no, you could and that was transferring the personality from the old body to the new body, which I don't think Lois does in any of them.
No.
But she does even more bizarre things, so.
But C.J. Cherry does that in Cytine.
Oh, yeah. Next,
That's it. So continue, Carole.
Okay?
I thought Dean had his hand up, but I guess not.
Yeah, no, yeah. Well, I did briefly. Yeah, I mean, this is well, technology and all that. It's scary stuff to me, but so was the Industrial Revolution, and yeah. I just wonder if this is where we should be spending our money and talent. I just don't know that's a moral. Oh, and then my question was, where does the Christian right stand on all of this? Cloning yourself and all that, and states' rights, et cetera, and Supreme Courts. And God, it just seems like a bag of worms that we really don't need when we have climate change to address and other things, But I don't know. That's just me.
Where does the Koran stand?
Let's not even go there. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, do we have to stick to the Abrahamic religions? How do the Buddhists
No.
feel about it? You know.
There are some interesting parentage in the Maharabha, but and some strange transplants too.
Well, if you're looking at religions, there are several religions that gods and mortals mix to produce offspring. I mean, Gilgamesh, I think, was the product of two gods and one mortal. So let's not really get into that stuff.
No, real quick, and then I'll shut up for a while. Henry David Thoreau, I just watched a really good Ken Burns, and that commie newspaper, the New York Times, back in whenever this was,
it's no longer that.
He dared to talk about Eastern religions, Buddhism, Hinduism, etc., and they wanted to tar and feather him because how dare you? What do you mean? Yeah, that was then, and this is now, but yeah.
Yeah, well, what is Mrs. Vance? Isn't she some sort of Eastern religion?
Well, she's Indian, I believe, East Indian, yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway,
well, we're getting very far afield.
yep.
I think the thing that Lois Bujold does best is she makes all of this stuff seem trivial and mundane. Just
Every day.
something that we can use or that we have to cope with or
Yes.
anyway.
One of the characters is shunned because she decides she's going to carry her baby herself.
Okay, Dean, is this a real contribution to this discussion?
Let's continue.
Okay.
I don't have my hand up. I'm shut up.
Okay, let's yeah. I was about to say this. The artificial womb, the uterine replicator, is the holy grail of reproductive medicine. And believe me, they are working on this right now. Research is being done to create one of these. And I think once we have artificial wombs, their first use will be as a rescue device for babies threatening to be born at 5 months or 6 months. Oh my God, that if it looks like the baby is coming, the doctor can rush in, do a cesarean to get baby placenta and everything out of the mother and into the artificial womb so that it can continue growing and everybody will be happy. But after a time of using it as a rescue device, I think it's going to start permeating the culture as a way to avoid pregnancy for women who don't want to carry it themselves. Simply an alternative to natural birth. It would certainly do away with the need for host mothers. And again, my sci-fi reference is Lois Bujold. And it is just a trivial part of the background of her worldview, her series. And
Question?
yes.
I would think that people would really be looking into this, especially the wealthy, because I would imagine the technology for this would be related to rejuvenation technologies.
Wait a minute, related to what?
Rejuvenation technologies to help people live longer and be more youthful.
Okay, can you elaborate on that?
If we have a way to successfully grow fetuses into babies, I would imagine that kind of technology would be useful for rejuvenating adults, making them more youthful, or something, technologies related to that. And so I think that a lot of people would get behind this, especially the wealthy ones, because this is not going to be a cheap thing to do.
Well, I think like most technical innovations that are very expensive at first, as it becomes more and more widely used, the cost of using it will come down.
Seems likely.
Yeah, that will happen too late for many people. But for others who can afford the higher expenses, it would be helpful for them. Go ahead, David.
My guess is that you're right, Tom, that this has, to be able to do a synthetic uterus, we're going to need to be able to do considerably more in terms of blood supply and oxygenation. And I kind of suspect that you're right, Carole, that it would make sense as a rescue device for premature babies. That seems like a shorter and easier task than a complete uterine replicator. But they're both going to require managing the complexities considerably better than I think our current medical technology would allow.
Well,
We're not quite there yet. Would that be
right.
correct?
Oh, yes, definitely we are not there yet. But something you should meditate on is that I think very much of what you are thinking is going to have to be built into the artificial womb is actually done by the placenta. And you know, the artificial womb is not going to have to be quite as complicated as you're thinking, because the zygote, the conceptus, will build its own uterine replicator. I'm sorry, will build its own
Placenta.
placenta. And you know, that's already used to dealing with oxygenation and
Well, but the placenta means the energy and the minerals and the oxygen from
Yeah.
the uterus.
and it takes care of the notion that the mother doesn't necessarily have to have the same blood type as the fetus.
Okay, yeah, so it's
You know,
it's a separation and a filter,
yeah.
but you do need to supply the energy and the oxygen and
Oh, yeah. But basically, you supply it to the placenta rather than directly to the infant.
it could be done at either to the placenta or to the umbilical cord. But it makes sense to do it for the placenta. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
There'd
Not
be a
going to
lot-
be cheap or quick.
Say again?
Not going to happen quickly or inexpensively.
No?
There'd be a lot of other nutrients that need to be supplied. Tom, you're next.
I was thinking that I'm not sure if it comes before or after this, but we have people who have hands, feet destroyed in accidents. And along the way here, somewhere we're going to be able to grow replacement hands, feet, eyes,
Limbs.
hearts, pancreases.
Organs, yeah.
But the other thing I wanted to mention is last weekend we saw the opening night of a play called Ada Lovelace, The Bride of Science, at the Crane Theater up in Northeast Minneapolis. It's a small play. It was fascinating.
Yes.
Um,
Actually, Ada Augusta, Lady Lovelace.
yes.
It is the proper naming.
Yes. Anyway, it's at the Crane Theater, and I urge you to go. It's still on, I think, this weekend and perhaps next weekend. Google will lead you to a ticket source.
Okay,
was well
Carol,
done.
it's noon now. Do you have much left?
No, that's the end. Well, no, wait a minute. Let me make sure.
I thought there were a couple other items on your future
Yeah, well,
slide.
let me just, because we've been skipping around. Okay, let's look very briefly at a couple of these that I have in here. I think we are very close to having babies who will be born decades after they were conceived. Heinlein addresses this in Podcane of Mars, that genetically, from a medical standpoint, the ideal time for a couple to have children is when both of them are in their 20s. The ideal time to raise those children is very often in their 30s or 40s. And he talks about a society where a married couple will create however many children they plan to have. 1, 2, 4, whatever. And these are frozen. And very early embryos can successfully be frozen. And then we've done this. Carefully thawed out and implanted in the mother and grow to term. It has to be done very, very early in the pregnancy. As soon as it gets to too many cells, you can freeze it with no problem, goes away. So, but he has a society here where, again, a married couple will have all the children they want genetically, freeze them, and then as the appropriate time for raising a family comes along, they might say, okay, let's thaw out the embryo, that let's do a boy first, and one kid now. And then when that child is 3 or 4 years old, let's do a girl this time. And again, it's just creating the children genetically at the time of greatest health and egg quality and sperm quality, and then waiting until the time that you're better capable of raising a family.
This could also be useful for long distance space flight. For example, if we want to go colonize a planet in another star system, looking into the future a bit.
Yeah.
Yep.
You kind of skipped magnetic switches to control fertility, so I'd like to hear about that.
Okay, yes. This one, I believe, is my very own idea. I don't think I got it from anybody else. But I would like to see a society where all pregnancies and childbirths are planned. There is no such thing as someone accidentally getting pregnant and deciding to keep the baby, or and what the technique would be is this society would pick an age in the early teens, let's say, for their children and install, in the case of the boys, a valve in the vas deferens in both of them, and that's where the sperm gets out of the testes and down to where they can be used. And you would do the same thing for girls, only the valve would be in the fallopian tubes. And these valves can be opened or closed using a magnet from outside the body, And if a man and a woman decide, hey, we want to have a baby, they each of them drop by their local doc and say, hey, restore my fertility, and go from there. And you could hopefully end up with a society where all childbirths are planned and wanted. And I don't think it is unfeasible.
Okay,
That's
Dean,
likely that your confidence in mechanical devices seems perhaps higher than I might expect.
Well, I mean, it's the future. You have time for a lot of
This is
research, a lot of exploration, You do it first in guinea pigs and, you know,
actually maybe not. You might want to use a larger mammal.
okay.
yeah, I would think that could increase the risk of ectopic pregnancies. But Dean, you're next.
Yeah, this all sounds wonderfully utopian. I can conceive of a society where there would be no unwanted, I mean, great idea, but socially, politically, how do you make that happen? Here's my question. So we know or we suspect that if you create a multi-celled organism when you're young with young eggs and young sperm, and then freeze it for 20 years, that it will be just as good or better than if
No,
you had just done it with the older versions later on. You see what I mean?
yeah.
Well, I'm asking Carole.
I don't know.
Okay, I'm asking the group. Yeah, we don't know exactly. That's my point. Yep.
I mean, I'm talking about playing around with the future.
And you're talking about statistics.
Yeah.
Is the chance of creating a better conceptus higher if you do it early and then preserve it, freeze it for 20 years than if you do it late?
Exactly.
And both of those are going to be subject to statistics. And we're not going to start measuring those cases until it's possible.
Oh, again, call it, 50 years from now, and you've done a lot of experimenting on
Mhm.
large mammals and
Yep.
um,
Okay, Bren, you're next.
It's more of an invitation. Have a look at the chat. It's been a fascinating morning. I've been playing with some stuff here, and I found this paper which I put in the chat, and I fed it into the AI system that I'm building, which I call
okay, just a moment. I am looking for chat.
It's okay. There's no worries today because I
The
think we're
artificial
short on
wound
time.
is a lever.
No, it's all the way down. If you look at the top, when Carole was first talking about the infidelity problem and the chemical pregnancy, I started there. And I brought the paper that's below that into the AI that I've been developing and started looking at it. What became, and this is a recurrent theme on everything I've done with this type of framework, it's the lens at which we look at the world that yields what we see. And when you look at this chemical stuff through a different lens, you don't see, I think Carole's insight's perfect. It is a way of quality control. It's the body refusing unviable embryos. But there's a rhythm of life that sits below that. And it explains why that is the case. And it's not necessarily that eggs get old and get bad. It's that the rhythm of life changes and you've got to attune to it in order to make it viable. And the insight, because I was having a role here as people were talking, and Carole's cadence of delivery was very meditating. So I really thank Carole. I went further and said, can we like looking at intervention? What can we do? And there's a framework for an Apple app that someone could wear that could basically put the feedback in the system that allows them to better tune their response. So I'm going to try that out. And anybody wants to join me, feel free to join me. I put some stuff in the chat.
Yes, I'm just reading what you
Yeah.
put in chat.
I've got a whole lot for you here. My framework comes with a lot of math, so I'm trying to hide the math. Otherwise, you lose the signal for the noise. But it was amazing. I literally, and I'm like, wow, is it really that easy? But it's very similar to what I found with cardiac. I'm looking at signals with strokes and brain conditions, and I'm seeing the same thing emerge, that we can see new biomarkers once we understand the rhythm of life. So thanks for the talk, Carole. I say it's more of an invitation than a comment. I put it in the chat, so it should be preserved for folks.
Yeah.
And happy to talk about it anytime, as you need. I didn't want to disturb your flow, but I thought I'd add this because I think it resonates very strongly with what you're saying.
No, I really appreciate you doing it that way.
Oh, happy
Thank you.
Saturday. Okay. But have a good read of it, Carole. If you want to come back to us, send the email. Okay, I'll put my email back in here again so people's got it. And then people can contact me if they want to look at building this app. I'll be happy to look at it too.
I was going to say, as sort of a roll up, the thing that I learned the most in doing the research for this presentation is that conception is really easy. It's implantation that is difficult. And I think if more people were aware of these facts, the fact that a woman's body is aborting more than half of her conceptions, we would be less upset by you know, people who reject the IUD because it's an abortifacient. Well, her body is doing it anyway. So we're upping the percentage. And I think a wider knowledge of this conception is easy, implantation is difficult, might calm people down about the whole abortion debate.
David.
I was just going to mention that we have Stan doing a presentation next week that people might want to take a look at. That's posted on the internet under Meetup.
Okay, is Stan still here?
I'm not sure.
I didn't see him on the list. Okay, I have one thing related to what Bren posted.
Ah, there's Stan.
This Apple Watch idea is interesting. It's been known for quite some time that it's possible to influence the gender of the baby by trying to time intercourse according to the menstrual cycle, because the chemical conditions change during that and allow maybe more female sperm to get through than male, or vice versa. It's certainly not 100% type of thing, but it can increase the odds one way or the other. And an app like this could maybe improve that a bit. So people may be able to up their chances if they want a girl or a boy by timing it according to whatever this app is telling them.
And as they age, I think you adjust the timing window to improve the chances, as Carole says, of actually embedding or implanting. So I say it's a fascinating morning. I've got some blueprints here of algorithms that allow us to look for certain biomarkers from the paper I shared. So yeah, it's an invitation. Just reach out. I'm pretty flat out in the space world, but as you get grounded, it's kind of fun to see these applications that are short term and could make a real difference. So cheers. Thanks, Tom. Reach out if you need it.
Thanks, Brad.
My
David?
understanding is that the male sperm swim faster and the female sperm live longer.
Yes.
So and that those shift the odds a little, but it may be 60-40 instead of 50-50 or 51-49.
Yep.
So it's certainly not a sure thing, but it is a way to shift the odds a little.
Right. An app like this could help do that a little better.
Did you post your email, Tom, in the chat? So I got it.
Okay.
Thank you, Carole, for the presentation.
Yes.
I'm really busy today. I was hoping it was going to be boring, and it certainly was not boring.
Well, I certainly learned things that I did not know before in the course of researching this. So I hope I have imparted to you things you didn't know before.
You didn't get into it, but the numbers on the percentage, the effectiveness of various birth control methods was something of a surprise to me when I looked at them.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So what's next, David? I think you mentioned it before.
Yeah, is Stan on?
No.
Okay. Well, he's going to be presenting some information from Nate Higgins and Chris Kiefer with regards to, yeah, there you are. Do you want to say anything about it, Stan, or do you want me to? With regard to the changes in energy, we're on
My initial thought
the
when
edge of change.
invited to do a presentation by David was I wanted to determine if we could analyze the geopolitical classic form of political thought versus the human survival. And I was inspired somewhat, Tom Walsh, by your article that you delivered to an email discussion, kind of the tribal version of humanity versus
Yeah.
the unity or the kumbaya version of getting, we all can get together. And I guess the material that I found from Nate Higgins seems to be quite good at talking about that issue in a fairly fantasy. It's not a fantasy. I think Nate is very grounded in reality, especially with this knowledge about oil, the markets, and the potential for a sustainable future. So that's it's all in the meetup. All of the videos are in the meetup. Plenty of material to research if you want to come to it already armed, or you want to just learn as we're going along. Those videos are what we're going to watch next week.
Okay, thanks. All right. Well, I'm going to head out. So thanks again, Carole.